What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video for the First Descendant today, we're going to be focusing on a setup for Serena for Void Erosion Purge, more specifically Void Erosion Purge level 30, which is the highest level in the game right now. This setup trivializes this content completely and essentially lets you walk right through all the enemies, pretty much blasting everything away. When you're playing solo or in a group, you're going to be dealing monstrous fucking damage. And I think like every day that goes past now, we see more degenerate shit coming from Serena. So she's definitely probably the most powerful Descendant in the game right now. I don't think I'm wrong when I say that. And the fact that you can build her skill based setup as well, which is pretty good at AoE damage, but then you can sort of dive into her gun based side, which is just really ridiculous. And it's able to do things that no other Descendant in the game can do right now. Now, this also, unfortunately, is not just Serena that's making this work, but also Malevolent, which is the Battle Pass weapons, which I released a video on Saturday the 15th of March. Now, when I released that, I essentially had just built a crowd control Malevolent, and then somebody, I think if I remember the name correctly, it was Malteser, I'll throw it up on screen, commented on the video and said, with Serena, this weapon can do Void Erosion stage 30 in 3 minutes solo with a cold build. At this point in time, I was deeply entrenched in building a snipe Serena, which I was going to use to one-tap like all of the void bosses, but this kind of like made me go off on a tangent and see if this was really the case. I had suspected that Malevolent would be kind of good for this activity, but I had not really messed around with anything higher than Void Erosion Purge, I think 25 or something like that. So I started putting it together, and yes, Malteser was not wrong at all. This shit is fucking disgusting. And really, like you guys that follow my content, everything like that, you know I'm not a speedrunner by any way. I specifically stay away from that sort of thing because I'm an old motherfucker and I just don't have it in me anymore. But this setup will make you feel like you are speedrunning the game basically. And I do have a, I guess, short rant sort of like statement on the state of the game right now, which I wanted to do in this video as well. I'll put it at the end of the video. There's of course timestamps and everything, so you can just go and check that out if you want to. But let's talk about the build. Now, undoubtedly, the main reason why this shit works the way that it does is because of a very specific reason, and that is redemption, which is Serena's fourth skill. More specifically, this skill, and maybe if I can just move my face here because I'm kind of like blocking off the important part there. Essentially, the skill works that it works differently whether you activate it in the air or whether you activate it on the ground. Specifically, when you activate it in the air, you activate something called Redemption's Judgment. And what this does is it gives you a damage multiplier, which is your max HP times 0.8. And this is the main reason why this build has such insane damage ramp, because the more HP you stack into the setup, essentially, the more powerful it becomes. That means that you don't necessarily need Malevolent to make this work, but the point is that Malevolent is also really good at AoE damage, and it's kind of like the perfect weapon for Purge because it deals a lot of damage to the primary target, but also sends a lot of damage out to secondary targets, and those secondary targets can return the damage back to the primary again, which allows you to mop up groups very fast, and that's kind of like what you want. It's one of the reasons why Albion Cavalry Gun was so good, or is so good, but obviously looks like shit compared to this, essentially. So basically the point is you are going to be stacking as much HP as possible, and yes, there's a bunch of other small little pieces that come together that make this build a lot better, but even the basic blocks of the build, if you don't have all the perfect rolls, you don't have everything, and you're going to see that with my setup because I don't, you'll still be able to squeeze a decent amount of value out of this. And while you won't be able to compete with what's on the leaderboard right now, which is, I'm guessing, less than a minute 40-second completions, you'll still be doing, like in the footage as you can see me as a non-speedrunner old motherfucker gamer, still doing like 4-minute completions, 5-minute completions, 6-minute completions, which is more than enough, and honestly like better than 99% of the other Descendants for Void Erosion Purge 30. So I mean, fucking go figure. But okay, let's go ahead and start with Malevolent first. So we'll start with the weapon first. So if you want to know a little bit more detail about exactly how Malevolent works and all of that, please refer to my video from Saturday. I'm kind of going to try and just cut off as much time on this already long video. But basically we're going to look at the build itself and putting it together. Now what we have to consider for Void Erosion Purge is it's of course Legion of Doom. I believe it's Legion of Doom, but basically it's weak to chill, so you need to re-gear your Malevolent to deal chill damage. By default this is a toxic weapon, but that's no problem. We see this all the time with other weapons in the game. If you're able to re-gear them in such a way as introducing the other element in via mods and by your substat rolls and that sort of thing and your cores, then you're able to essentially push out the right elemental damage that you're looking for. And like I said, in this case we're looking for chill. At the same time as well, the rest of the setup is essentially just trying to fit as much damage as possible in, because the blades that come out of the bullets of Malevolent they are based on your attack power. So attack power will give you a lot of damage for these blades as they essentially hit the little targets and your main target. So we're going to start out with the standard setup, which is action and reaction, and of course rifling reinforcement. I always struggle to find this stuff fast. So these two standard backbone of every weapon. You have both having firearm attack rolls, which is important for us. Next, the third piece of the trifecta for every weapon is fire rate up. Of course, just making the gun shoot faster. By default, Malevolent has a fairly poopy fire rate. It shoots slow. So the more fire rate you juice into this, the better your damage profile will be, and essentially the faster you'll be able to down stuff, which I think comes at no surprise. Then we also want to expand the magazine, because by default the magazine is pretty small. It's 9 bullets in the magazine, but because it's such a small base, it means that kind of like no matter how many mods we throw at it, you're never going to get to like an 80 mag or a 90 mag. So that is what it is. However, putting in expand weapon charge is good, because that gets us essentially to 13 bullets here. And then of course there's other ways that we can also affect this with substats and with weapon cores and that sort of thing. Now at this point in time, we need to start thinking about getting that element running. So we want chill. So we want chill enhancement here. And then we also want chill priority. Both of these are important because chill enhancement will then give us chill damage on the weapon as well, which will be 30% of our firearm attack. And then what chill priority will do is it'll take our total chill attack and it'll give us 50% more of that. At the same time, also just negatively influencing our reload time modifier ever so slightly. But that being said, this is a hand cannon, so the reload is not that oppressive, and it's not really something that's gonna, make you cry too much. We can also put in something called Snowflake Conductor, because what this says is when attacking enemies inflicted with frostbite, your firearm attack will also jump up by a percentage. Firearm attack is really, really important for us because obviously it's raw damage, but again, like I said, it also affects our blades. Now, the point why Snowflake Conductor is good though is because we're shooting with chill damage, our main target will get frozen. And so this is what they are referring to when they say like frostbite. And so when they are frozen, then you will get this spike in damage. And the general sort of like thought process here is that what you're trying to do is in any room that you come into, you want to be focusing on the toughest target, because if you shoot the tougher target, the blades that come out of that will oftentimes completely murder the trash around that, and you'll only be left with the main target to damage, while a bunch of blades are now bouncing back from the trash that died around that, thereby dealing additional damage. And then at the same time, you're most likely going to frostbite that target, and that means you're going to see this ramp, and there you go. Now, charge amplification is also good for us here, because we are not trying to stack critical hit. We're not trying to stack critical hit damage. We're not even trying to stack weak point. We are literally just focusing on firearm attack, and we are focusing on our element. So this gives us a nice big jump in firearm attack as well. And then we have what I kind of like think are swing slots here. So these two are kind of like dealer's choice to what you want to put into them. Of course, candidates here can be additional magazine size. You can try and squeeze, faster reload out of the weapon or something like that. But something that I've been experimenting with, and I really think it actually performs pretty well, is the new multi-mods. So these multi-hit mods are of course something new that also came with the Serena patch, and specifically what I've been rolling with here is multi-piercing trigger. This gives us multi-hit damage plus 20% and a multi-hit chance of 15%. These percentages are flat percentages, which is good. And then I've also put in something called multi-trigger rifling, which gives me multi-hit chance plus 65%. but it does also drop my fire rate by 15%. So now, technically speaking, we're only increasing our fire rate by 10% because we only have plus 25 on our fire rate mod over here. Now, if we check this out, we'll see then we're basically ending up with a multi-hit chance of 80%. The multi-hit damage multiplier is not that great, but the bottom line is this is another avenue of damage for us, basically allowing us to just squeeze a little bit of additional damage out. Again, like I said, these two should be something that you should experiment with and feel what, you know, is comfortable for you. You cannot go wrong with more bullets in the magazine. You cannot go wrong with faster reloads. Maybe if you have a problem with the accuracy of the weapon, you can also address that. But this is essentially your purge setup for Void Erosion Purge 30, or for that matter, any purge that has Legion of Doom. That being said, as you go backwards from 30, the weapon deals enough damage that it can actually, in most cases, deal with those Void Erosion stages as well. It's just that strong, so it's kind of stupid. But this is the Malevolent setup. So then let's just quickly talk about substats as well as cores. Now, I do want to say, I think I pretty much have like the perfect substat setup for Malevolent for this particular thing that we're trying to do. And that's because we have firearm attack and we have our element once again, which is chill attack. And then I have rounds per magazine giving me just, I think, 1 additional bullet there. So we go to 14 bullets. And then basically, then we also have bonus firearm attack versus Legion of Darkness, which again, if I can just show you here, the reason why that is important is Legion of Darkness is, if I move my face, is of course your faction 430, so that's going to deal more damage on those guys. But in any case, it's also, that's the faction that's weak to, you know, ice or chill. Then in terms of cores, what you want is you want 2 fire rates at the bottom, and you want 2 elements on there, so you want 2 chill attacks on there, and then you also want a firearm attack. You don't want any damage against Colossus, obviously, that makes no sense, and you want to be pushing your elemental damage as much as possible, hence the 2 elemental rolls here, the 2 chill attacks. Now you can see that I have a fucking cursed setup with my fire rates. Again, I was focusing on developing snipe Serena, so I spent a huge amount of time like rolling the sniper rifle, and so therefore I burned through a lot of my raw material. So I kind of like just lucked out on rolling 2 core 6s at 10%. But this is one of the first places where you could drastically improve the performance of this weapon by just rolling higher fire rate here. So of course you want those 2 fire rate rolls to be 20%ers, then you're really going to be cooking with gas. And then of course the 2 elements can also still be improved to like the 180s, and then of course the firearm attack can also be taken to 80%. So there's a lot of additional juice that can essentially be squeezed out here, but that is essentially my setup there. Now, next thing we have to look at exactly how Serena is set up for this. As I mentioned, the main thing that drives our damage and where a huge amount of our damage is coming from is Redemption, which is her 4th skill, and it essentially functions off high HP values. So the backbone of your build is going to be a high HP value. Now, one of the reasons why this was easy for me to pivot to was this is the same philosophy that you use for the snipe version. So while I was looking at that, I was like, holy shit, but I mean, you could just repurpose this for fucking Purge. It's kind of like the same thing. With Purge, you also want to be kind of tanky so that you die like a bitch, so high HP helps for that. And at the same time, it also just boosts the damage through the roof, so it kind of just makes complete sense, right? So as I said, backbone is high HP, and then you can start focusing on things like cooldown reduction as well as cost reduction and its MP replenishment, because what you also want is you want to have access to this skill as much as possible. Now you can see it's on a kind of like disgusting cooldown. It's like 110 seconds. And then it has a duration. The duration that you're interested in is the Redemption's Judgment duration, where you can see it's 14.4 seconds right now. Of course, these things can be affected by your reactor, and that's why these amounts are already different. But the point is that you want to be going and dropping this cooldown quite drastically as well, because this is going to be your button that you press, and then you kill a room, and then you go to the next room, and then you press it and you kill the room, or 2 rooms or something like that. This is going to be the way that you essentially speed through the content. All right. So we're going to start off with our HP backbone first. Now, one of the ways that you can stack HP to the fucking moon is essentially using something called overwhelming HP. And what overwhelming HP does, and if you are in any way familiar with the game and the meta and everything like that, and the Deathstalker meta, it was overwhelming shield at that time. And the point was there, what you did is you made your HP like 1, and then you stacked your shield to the fucking roof, and that would make you a lot better at dealing with Deathstalker's damage, because you could essentially replenish that shield a lot easier, and shield also recharges itself, which was just another way for you to stay super tanky, yada yada yada. I'm mansplaining this shit. The point is, overwhelming HP is the other thing, the other side of that, right? So now instead of fixing your HP to 1, it fixes your shield to 1, and then it gives you increased HP when you then increase your HP and increase your shield. So that kind of like shows us already which other mods we should be looking at. So we want to use something called Stim Accelerant. Stim Accelerant is going to give us a massive amount of additional HP. It is, however, going to reduce our MP ever so slightly, but that's not the end of the world. Then we are just going to put in flat HP. So if we go over here, where the fuck is it? Increased HP, something like this. That's just going to be another 218% HP. Then, of course, we can also put increased shield in. Bear in mind, though, you might be thinking like, okay, but hold on, my guy. You're reducing your shield to fucking 1. So what does increased shield does? Well, because of overwhelming HP, it takes that shield and converts it to HP. So this is another way for you to stack that, essentially. So now you go and we have like a very, very strong setup, our backbone for our HP here. And we're not done with that yet, and external components are going to affect this as well as our arc tuning board, but we're going to get to that in due time. Now, as I said, we need to look at things like how we can essentially increase our duration, but also increase our cooldown for our skill, our 4th skill, so that we can get access to it as much as possible. Now, one of the easiest ways to do that is through a skill called, or a mod called Nimble Fingers, that gives us a decent amount of skill cooldown as well. And then we can also do something called MP Conversion. MP Conversion also gives us a decent amount of skill cooldown, although now this also gives us an MP deficit here. So now we already have minus 30% to our maximum MP. This is only really a problem if you intend to be flying around the entire fucking time. But this build is perfectly fine with just jumping in the sky, activating your 4, and then just running on the ground and fucking killing everything. However, I do also build it that if you want to be Flyboy Johnson, you can do that as well, and we're going to accomplish that quite easily with a mod. So we have our 2 skill cooldown modifiers here. I do still like one more, and that is focus on, I think I'm just going to put singular in here. And we don't even have to increase this at all, because we're not interested in the singular skill power modifier. We're only interested in the skill cooldown minus 6.1% there. Now, with all of this slapped in, we can see now our cooldown has dropped all the way down from 110 seconds to 27 seconds, which is fucking huge. That is basically a quarter, right? So now the next thing that we can do is we can just focus on bringing our duration up a little bit, so we can crush the difference between those two as much as possible, which means that we essentially have this skill available on cooldown. So to do that, what we can do is we can just drop in a mod called Skill Extension. Skill Extension gives us skill duration plus 36.5%. And then we have another one, which is Maximize Duration. Maximize Duration. This one over here. This gives us skill duration plus 40%, although it does also slightly tank our skill power modifier, but we don't give a fuck about that because this is not a skill-based build. This is a gun build. Then, as I've mentioned, one last thing that we can throw in here, which can help us a little bit with our MP management. And if you want to be the guy that flies around like a fucking lunatic, you can do so, and that is Energy Collection. Energy Collection is MP recovery plus 57.7%. I think MP Collector will probably be better in solo for sure, not in group-based content, but I haven't really tested if it's working again. It's been busted since the fucking patch came out, and I didn't bother testing it. I've been running Energy Collection on Serena since the patch dropped. I'm happy with the way that it performs, so it is what it is. But this is your essential setup then for Void Erosion Purge 30. This gives you that strong backbone of HP that I mentioned about. Plus, now when we look at our fourth skill, we can see that we have a cooldown of 27.2 seconds and we have a duration of 24.3 seconds. That means that we only have about a 2-second downtime between us being, well, sorry, no, that's more like 3 seconds. Sorry, I apologize for that. It's 2.9 seconds, but we have a 3-second downtime in between the skill wearing off and us being able to hit it again. And you kind of like get into a groove where you're just like using that time to essentially maybe pick up ammo or move from one room to the other, whatever, to essentially transition and then just hit it and start clearing out again. So it is, you know, easy to play around. It's not really a problem. Okay, so that covers that. The next thing we need to talk about is the reactor. Now, specifically with the reactor, generally speaking, cooldown and cost is good substats for. The actual reactor type doesn't matter fuck all, because you only want the substats, okay? I keep moving my face around at the bottom here, so I think that's starting to annoy me. It's probably annoying you guys as well. So I'm just going to leave it on this side for now, and then I'm just sure I'll move it again just now. But skill cooldown and skill duration up is actually better for us here, because as you recall from just now, those two are the things that we're trying to crush down a lot, right? So because we want that fourth skill available as much as possible. So having these two subsets on whichever reactor you want, as long as you have them on gold, is the best possible setup for you, because that's going to give you the two things that you want. And it's one of the reasons why my stats are, you know, the way that they are. Then external components. There is no specific set here that I would advise you to go for. The more important thing is that you have 4 primary HP rolls, meaning like the original roll on the thing, the intrinsic roll on the external component is HP. And then you have another HP roll on your auxiliary power as one of the sub rolls. And then you also have a max shield roll on your processor as one of the sub rolls. That's it. The rest of the shit, yes, you can have like MP recovery and max MP and that sort of thing. I think max MP is actually really good. MP recovery in combat is also good, but as long as you have max MP, I think it's still like okay. But that being said, the most important thing is 4 max HP rolls of 646. As you can see, my auxiliary power has 646, my sensor has 646, my memory has 646, and my processor has 646. And my components are just a yellow piece that I found that had a really good sub max HP roll of 855, which is dope. Then I'm using Frozen Heart, and I'm using Annihilation Memory, and I'm using Distorted Resolve for the 3 sensor, memory, and processor. That's it. Most important thing, 4 primary HP rolls, 646, another HP roll above 800 on your fucking auxiliary, and then a max shield roll above like 250 on your processor. If you have all of that, and then lastly, what we're going to look at on the arc tuning, that is what's going to affect your HP roll and get it to be this nice and juicy and big. And trust me, the more this shit is, the more damage you're gonna deal. If we could juice this to 80k, you would fucking one-tap shit. But the bottom line is, this is what you need to get to this point. Now, last but certainly not least, let's quickly talk about arc tuning. I don't have a level 40 Serena yet, so I only have 34 points available. But the direction that you should be heading in first is down here. Down to the right is the HP part of the arc tuning board. And what you want to do is you want to come down here and you want to go along here picking up HP rolls. HP recovery modifier is okay, but you kind of like want to come down here and get these other nodes. You want to come across here. These fire resistance nodes are fucking bullshit, who cares? But you want to come down here and get enhanced max HP, because this gives you max HP 55%, which is fucking massive. Then you can go this way around here and you can pick up max shield, which is another 59.6%. These 2 nodes are gonna stratosphere your fucking your stats, and it's with all of this shit together that we get to 35k. All right, but because I still lack another 6 points, it can get better. I can pick up another 2 nodes here of max shield here, and I can probably go across here and pick up another 2 nodes of max shield here, which is going to be another 8% of max shield, which will certainly affect the rolls a little bit more. Or failing that, if I'm happy with the HP, I can go this way and I can pick up some firearm attack and that sort of thing for my Malevolent. I do, however, like the idea of spending these 2 points and going up here and getting MP recovery modifier. It's just another way for you to ensure that you are always topped up, and especially if you're going to be flying around like a goon, then you want as much MP as possible, because that of course continuously drains your MP. So yeah, good to have. That's the arc tuning board. I do believe I said last but not least, but there's one more piece, and that is of course Inversion Reinforcement, which you might think is not important, but actually the shit is important. You want to be picking up in the seasonal track, you want to get evolutionary cutting mechanism. This basically increases the number of bladed cogs that fly out of your malevolent bullets by 3. This is just a flat damage increase for you. There's no fucking detriment to picking this. This is just really good, and you should absolutely get it. Next, of course, you want to be matching your element type. So this was the same in the previous season, and it will continue to be a thing, I think, in the game. You want to be picking up a focus round for the element that you're focusing on. In our case, we're focusing on chill because we're doing Void Erosion Purge level 30. So we want to be picking up chill focus rounds. Then last but not least, I like selective neurostimulation because this is just another way for us to get more MP. Again, like I said, I want this build to also function for people that want to fly around. I tend to not fly around, but sometimes I do, and when I do, I want like a lot of MP available. And that also means that, you know, even if that's not the case, you do also want to have enough MP available at all times to be able to activate your 4th ability the entire time so that you can deal that damage all the time. But that's it for the build. Thank you very much for watching. I did promise a small rant at the end of the video, and this is now going to be this part here. But basically the state of the game right now is in a way alarming, whether you are a new player or whether you are a veteran that's been with the game for a while. And what I mean by that is that I'm kind of like, we get it, Nexon, making the new Descendant the most powerful Descendant, and making the Battle Pass weapon the most powerful, or at least one of the most powerful weapons, sends a very clear message that, I mean, I don't want to say it's pay to win, because it's not, but it kind of is. The bottom line is it incentivizes people to have to get those things, of course, because this is what the meta is right now, and this is what everybody's, oh my god, I'm finishing fucking Void Erosion Purge in a minute 50 seconds, look at this shit. And that's the fucking problem. A lot of people don't necessarily prescribe to the idea of a meta and don't really give a shit about this, but a lot of people do. And that's unfortunately the thing, that when the game, and this has been a problem for a while now, but it's never been as magnified as it is right now with this Serena update. With the looming fucking nerf to Innis still also like coming sometime in April for some reason, I just wonder if this is an indication of what the game is going to become, meaning like the current Descendant comes out, fucking flattens all of the content, it gets left alone until the next Descendant comes out, then that Descendant gets nerfed, and the new Descendant flattens all the fucking content, and there we go. If they do that, then they can fuck right off. And I mean, that's annoying, and honestly, even if it, like, I'm a content creator for the game, so of course I have a vested interest to play the game, because it's actually a way for me to fucking, you know, I turn the shit into money and I put videos out and everything like that. Besides the fact that I enjoy playing the game, the point is there's a job factor to it, right? This is like my livelihood, right? Whereas like a random person that plays this game, it becomes exceedingly difficult for me to justify to that person that they should be spending their time on fucking anything in the game. Because the point is that all you need to do is you just need to look at what the new thing is that comes in a season, and then just spend all of your effort on getting that, and it means for the rest of the season you'll be just like fucking skating clear. That is the fucking definition of power creep, if you will, and they are going to have to learn to somehow deal with this. This problem, I have been saying it, I made a fucking video in the preseason, all right, and I was downvoted into fucking oblivion for that, where I said that this was going to become a problem. There is a power creep issue in this game, and it will only increase. It will only get worse, and in a way it's almost compounding now, right? So it is going to be interesting to see if like a couple of days pass now, or we get the next couple of patches and stuff like that, or when the fucking Innis nerf patch drops, what the community's reaction to that's gonna be. Because again, I feel like that's like just unnecessary now. You might as well just leave Innis alone. Because if you're gonna nerf Innis, then you need to go look at the 4th ability of Serena and possibly rein that shit in a little bit. Or fucking, there's a multitude of other things that I can bring up. But the bottom line is also that I understand that some people want, and please hear me out. I'm only speaking for me right now, and I'm not a fucking voice piece for a group of people, anything like that. I'm not representative of anything. There's some of you that will agree with what I've said just now, and there's some of you that'll be like, shut the fuck up, dude. I like to be able to walk into a room and one-shot everything. It is why I fucking play this game. And to that, I say, cool. I have no problem with that. The only thing that I can say is that for the health of the game, the longevity of the game, if you create this kind of like setup, this system where essentially every time something new comes out, it pretty much invalidates 95% of everything else that's in the game. What you do is you nullify a lot of effort that a lot of players do on their descendants, their guns, and everything like that. And if that is the kind of game that they want to make, if it's a gacha fucking cell phone game on PC, cool. But up until now, the idea that I've gotten was that this was going to be a game that would have a rich, long fucking development, with eventually building up a big amount of things you can do and a big amount of descendants that you can choose and a big amount of guns that you can field. But if you build it according to this way, that technically speaking, only thing that matters is the last 2 weeks worth of shit that came out, the rest of the stuff is ass, then that's not very rich, and that's not like a fucking strong foundation / fucking history of things that you could do with the game at all. That being said, I do like you guys to let me know in the comments what you think about this. Again, like I said, I've seen a wide spectrum of opinion about this, from people, on the one side going, the game is fucking ruined because of this, and people on the other side going like, this is the best patch that I've ever seen in my life and the shit is fucking insane. So it's entirely possible that you might even lie in the middle, but in the end, it's your time, it's your money if you spend it on the game, and you should be spending it the way that you want to. So don't let anybody tell you how to enjoy the game or what to do in the game or whether you should even play the game. Make that up, make your mind up for yourself. But yeah, this was just my kind of like my 2 cents to the whole thing. Thank you very much for the support. Thanks for watching, especially if you made it this far. And as always, fucking cheers.